Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Kendall and I am the Marketing Director at ComTec Systems. Today we are discussing how Microsoft Teams has disrupted and revolutionized UCaaS. Some housekeeping before we get started. Everyone is muted just to eliminate the background noise. Also, we are thoughtful of your time, so this webinar will only be roughly 20 to 30 minutes, and then we're leaving about 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. If you would like to ask a question, which we encourage through the webinar, you'll simply ask a question at the top of this live meeting where it says Q&A. You'll select that, and then you'll just type your question in the box and select send. If you would like to send it anonymously, you can do that as well. Your name is optional and you'll just leave that blank, and then select post as anonymous before you send your question in. All right, so let me introduce our speaker today, Mike Bertoli. With over 3 decades of successfully cultivating IT, telecommunications, and engineering teams, Mike is deeply committed to offering strategic vision and expert guidance in every endeavor. He's played a pivotal role in transforming this company from a modest 2-person consulting firm into one of Inc. magazine's fastest growing privately owned technology firms in the United States. Now I will turn things over to Mike.
Thank you, Kendall, and thanks everyone for joining. And as I'm sitting here, I'm just watching the attendees list keep creeping up. So I imagine a big part of the audience probably missed the beginning of your introduction, Kendall. So I'm just going to reiterate that a big part of the success from these type of presentations comes from the interaction. So we're not live interacting, but we do take questions and surveys, obviously at the end. So what to expect from this? You probably got a survey at the beginning of this just to see what you're interested in. You're certainly going to get a survey at the end of this presentation, and that is actually where you're going to fill in your email. So if you want a one-on-one, that's where you'll do it. During the course of this presentation, again, there's a Q&A, or I'm sorry, you can ask questions, and there's a drop-down on there, and you can make it anonymous, but that's how we will respond to a lot. So let's get started. A little bit about me. Kendall just introduced myself. I'll give you some background of ComTec, so you know validation for the company and what we represent. We have been in business over 30 years. We are a telecommunications firm supporting over 3,000 clients. And this is done as a business model, just representing best-in-class solutions. So we are not a direct distributor. So today is about Teams. I've done presentations about a variety of different applications and tools. So we are a consulting firm. And what we do is just solve complex problems for businesses. There's lots of confusion in the market space right now about Microsoft Teams. So we launched Teams webinars and a variety of them. So we're doing overviews. We do technical deep dives, programming. So this one happens to be just an overview of what is Teams and what is the disruption. So this is our agenda for today, UCaaS, the evolution and disruption. And I'm going to go over a little bit about what we've seen from the eyes of ComTec and through the eyes of 3,000 clients that we're experiencing, features and use cases as we see them for the Teams environment, and then a decision tree. And that's really meant to help you guide you on what we do in order to make the decision. And it's also something that's a great takeaway for the attendees here if you're considering migrating to Teams. So here we go. I like this chart. It speaks volumes, but shows that Microsoft has the fastest growing business app in the world. It's outpacing its top 5 competitors combined. So statistics matter. So when we release a product, I know it's not going anywhere. They're global for a reason. 90% of US companies are already using Microsoft or their tools and services. Teams, as you may know, is a free add-on if you're using the Microsoft 360 stack. So what I like about this, there's so many startups in the telecommunications world, after doing this for 30 years. And what was the worst part is being guinea pig. So every day there's new applications, there's new integrations. The larger companies, the ones that traditionally have a lot of active user base and they're well funded, are traditionally going to have a lot of the applications without problems. And, volumes comes with experience. So this speaks for itself. Let's move on here. So the disruption, what took place? For those who are new or just considering Teams, I think it's good to know where we've been, to know where we're going. So what caused this paradigm shift? I go back to the 90s when we all bought phone systems. There was just traditional phone systems. And I feel every decade there's a different paradigm shift in technology, especially in the telecommunications space. By 2000, the Y2K area where everything was going to come to an end, we were in fast track to push in voice-enabled or IP-enabled phone systems. By 2010, a decade later, they were pulling out the phone systems and everything was going to VoIP, and everybody wanted to move to, they called it voice over IP, move to the cloud. And that was just basically taking your phone system out of your office and placing it in the cloud. But that was the introduction to unified communications. Is now it's not just necessarily about a SaaS model, a software model, but it's more about applications. And that's something I've seen really change this paradigm shift. It's no more about cost. A decade ago, it was a race to the bottom. How cheap can we sell something? And now the conversations are more about what are the applications and features and functionality within Teams, and how can I help my organization? Very different conversations we're having. So by 2020, I say applications rule. That's my take on it. Price matters, but features, functionality are the talking points. And you think about it, their competition, what has this done to them? Prior to this, you had Zoom and Ring, 8x8, Nextiva, Dialpad, iConnect, ZX. These are all major competitors that are building out voice platforms, and they're trying to make them collaboration tools. Where you got Microsoft on the other end has their collaboration tool, and they're trying to give you a good voice experience. So that's what's colliding right now. But Microsoft is a behemoth. They're coming in from two different directions. But consolidation in our industry is imminent. So we got to determine, is Teams right for me as an organization? Do I want to move in that direction? So here's what the top 6 or 5 reasons when we talk to clients, why are they doing this? So use one application for all your technology needs. What does that mean? I've walked into mid-sized organizations and they're using Zoom for meetings, or Microsoft Office Stack for some of their applications. They're using Slack for chatting, or Ring Central for telephony. And every one of them takes another integration to your network. Maybe they have carriers plugged into them. So all of that, you have integration, managing, licensing, interoperability, multiple vendors, multiple costs, and multiple cultural changes within an organization teaching all these different applications. So what does it mean when you have one application? You have your chat, your file sharing, your video, collaboration, SMS, texting, and calling, all inside this cool portal. Very easy to use. So for that part, it's very convenient. IT staff is expensive, right? Sometimes in the old days, we had people maintain your phone system, maintain your security, and you had to maintain your IT. Really, everything can fall under your IT infrastructure, and no better way than put all your tools under a single platform. So the platform is basically externally managed, so it doesn't put a big stress on your IT staff. It's easy to deploy, and it's network ready, provided you're already using a Microsoft, suite of services and you have a network in place. And what we're finding is collectively is companies are looking for ways to be more productive. If you're running, a healthcare organization, you have mobile nurses, you have people working from home. Today, in any business environment, we're dealing with mobile workforces and, an environment where people are, putting pressure to do a work from home, and you need collaboration. So these type of tools are allowing companies to operate very differently than they did even 10 years ago. There's productivity measurements within them. There's the ability to do file sharing and all different types of collaboration. So I would say you as an organization should look at these type of tools and think, can this help me run a bigger and better organization, and how? Right? Because that's the reason we make technology decisions. It's not because we just want to go spend money on something new. Almost always it's serving a need to fix a problem. So this becomes the only integrated solution where your back-end office suite that exists in the industry. So if you are a Microsoft shop, this does make sense if you're very committed to Microsoft. What I'll say in reverse is if you're not committed to Microsoft, and you're hearing the word Teams, it's probably not something I see a lot of companies just out of the blue ordering Microsoft Teams and using it as a voice if they weren't fully committed to the Microsoft Teams experience. And I can go through that in a private session and explain the difference and maybe show you a live technical explanation of what an experience looks like. So let's talk about some different verticals, or let's talk about the different plans. I thought verticals were next. So basics and iConnect Advanced. I would say when you think of Teams, think of two different worlds that you can embrace Microsoft Teams. One, if you bought Microsoft Office Suite and you're using the Teams, you'll notice you can overnight for free, you can communicate inter-office. So they give you like a taste of Teams. If you want to voice enable it, it's extra fees. So you voice enable it, and then all of a sudden you have this basic tool now for outbound dialing and incoming calls. What we find is that could work for certain organizations. Maybe the office doesn't have a lot of technology needs. Maybe your users are very basic. I like to break this down. We can help you determine which one works best for your organization. The calling plan is very basic. So if you're used to 3-digit dialing or 4-digit dialing in your office, a lot of those just basic features aren't included. Your programming inside of the O365 portal, if anyone's familiar with that, it's clunky. So you really don't want to be programming every day telephony needs inside of your O365 portal. There's limited functionality inside of it, and you need a one-to-one Teams user for every single. So a one-to-one Teams user for every single telephony user. So essentially, you might have users in your organization that didn't even have a desktop, but now you need to provide them a phone. That might be problematic for you if you have to go buy all user licenses for Microsoft just to voice enable a few users. That's where iConnect to Teams Advanced comes in. I like the advanced overlaying Teams. I think it gives people a much better experience using Teams. So you're going to get all the features and functionality that you would traditionally get with a legacy phone system. And what is that? So people always ask me, what am I missing? I don't understand. I'm like, well, behind the phone systems, there's a lot of programming. Anybody who's ever installed one knows, like your call forwarding rules and timers and auto attendance. There's chatting, there's reporting. Companies might have a call center. You might need dashboards. I mean, all these things are not included with Teams. They become clunky, cumbersome, confusing add-ons if you don't have an integration partner. With the iConnect to Teams Advanced through ComTec, we have all of that built in. You get a front-end portal outside of O365. You can pick and choose which Microsoft users that you want to be in Teams. So for instance, if you had, I dealt with a bank, they had 200 users, and I think they said like 50 users didn't even have desktops because they were just like teller areas. Well, you don't need to buy Microsoft even licensing for them. So it's a very inexpensive solution if you're not 100% already committed to the Microsoft stack and already paying for what they call the E5 licensing for the voice. And you'll get advanced reporting, like I said, and all the external integrations. So essentially, you're going to have two options when you move to Teams once you voice enable it. And what we do is we walk through the features and functionality of each. You could expect to pay $8 to $12 per user in a basic setting and roughly $20 a user in an advanced setting. In either scenario, people ask me about, well, what's this cost relative to the industry? It's about a 15 to 25% savings. So when you go, how am I saving money? If we can combine your carriers, you don't need all of the different external providers anymore. Every user we initiate has unlimited calling. So you don't have an extra carrier anymore. That's international, local, all your calling plans. You don't need a phone system vendor. You don't need a hardware vendor. You don't need support contracts. You don't need a UCaaS provider. This is all built in. It becomes a one and done experience. Use cases, what I was touching on earlier. So I have a lot of companies on this call. I think we had a couple hundred, and I was trying to look at the different verticals of who was showing up. So healthcare, banking, I saw some nonprofits, a lot of professional services and MSPs. So healthcare, we're seeing a lot of our user base. We literally support, we're in the hub of the healthcare world out here in between New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia. So we have literally hundreds and hundreds of healthcare accounts. A lot of them that were in the Microsoft suite, they like it. They're using secure file sharing. Some of them are doing patient-doctor visits. It's much easier to do scheduling, inter-office communications, especially with remote workers. I'm seeing a lot of manufacturing plants who have already embraced the Microsoft stack. They're going to the advanced functionality where they can use Teams for collaboration in their office environment, and then they can use all of the basic sets and save money by just launching the advanced feature set to like a regular desktop. So that works for them. That's very similar to banking. If they're already paying for it, they have the security. They're traditionally moving from a premise environment, want something secure. It meets all the compliance and requirements. So it's been a lot of activity in that space. Nonprofits and government, if you're on, I know there's a handful, like, so you're entitled, there's a lot of discounts, making it very affordable. Professional services firms like let's say accounting firms and lawyer and law offices, it's ripe for your organization to consider. I mean, it meets all the needs. I know there's not usually a lot of advanced functionality that's required, but the level of interaction that you can get with your client base, if you can imagine sharing files and sharing your screen and help and doing remote sessions, you're billing more efficiently, you're using your client's time more efficiently. If you're in court, if you're traveling, if you're working from home, these are all the things that are allowing bigger organizations hold a more flexible work environment while not losing productivity. Lastly, MSPs, that stands for managed service providers. So a big part of our presentation also is to companies that look to sell or support teams within their client base. So if you run an IT staff in-house, you're a director of IT. If you outsource it, you'd probably have an MSP. We work with hundreds of MSPs around the country, and we are their support arm for teams. So if you didn't have Teams rolled out at all, we have plenty of Microsoft 360 partners to help deploy it in full. And then ComTec comes in, and we are the voice enablement to making sure that you have a great experience when you're using the Teams voice solution. So here's something I wanted to share with everyone. So I call it the decision tree. So what do we do when we're looking at a company like, is Teams right? There's a lot of fear. If you make the wrong decision, if your team's not trained properly, it becomes a disaster. I think that's any program, any software that we launch within an organization. The adaptation between the product and our employees is paramount. So first and foremost, I always ask my clients, are we committed to Microsoft? And that's a big one, right? You're not going to move to Teams and look at this if you're not 100% committed to Microsoft, see their stack. And honestly, using Teams. So within Microsoft, are you a company that wants to do chat? Do you need to do file sharing? If the answer is yes, then having a single pane interface that allows all those functions to work, I would say it could be a great solution for you. Moving on, inventory of Microsoft licensing. If you've had Microsoft for a while, licensing has changed, the dynamics, the labeling, the costs, organizing that so you understand, A, what you're paying for day one, but B, what am I going to pay for as an organization if I do launch the voice? So you're not surprised with costs. Also, it's not uncommon that we find significant savings, that companies are either over purchasing licensing that they're just not using, or just didn't understand that they could have purchased a stripped down version of what they had and made it more cost effective. So we work with you on that. Evaluating your applications, again, I say past, present, future. So what have you used in the past? What are you using today? And what's your organization going to look like in 3 or 4 or 5 years? And does the Microsoft suite fit your needs, where you want to go? And it's very important that you look at those applications, because that'll either determine Microsoft Basic, if you're going to go to advanced, or another solution. Always evaluate your existing service contracts. So you might have, if you're in business, I'm sure you do, right? You have phone systems and services already in play. You want to know who those providers are, document it, know what your commitments are, and know when your contract end dates are. And typically there's a non-auto renewal clause. So we work with you on just making sure you start organizing the closet on that. And, it could be something you're planning on doing next year, but no time is too short than to start today to plan. Assessing your network. So assuming you're through your decision tree, you're like, this is really something I want to go through, you got your network. And I break it down to network, device utilization, and capability. So your network is what we all plug into. Do I have the right bandwidth? Do my devices have the CPU utilization to launch Teams? Does the network have the capability of supporting all of these users? Have I looked at my security? Did I do an assessment, a risk? Your data network now is vulnerable. Everything will be riding on it. Determining, I connect to Teams Basic or I connect to Teams Advanced, which are the two options, or other. And lastly, cost evaluation of these features. So we're going to look at what features you need, what the costs are, what additional licensing you may need, either from Microsoft or ComTec, what hardware you need. And hardware could be network electronics, maybe switching or routing to run your network, it could be cable runs, but it also could be phones, it could be headsets, and lastly, professional services, which is deployment, training, onboarding. Lastly, we call it implementation and support. So that becomes paramount. You get having a good company. I've seen a lot of our clients have a phenomenal experience with Teams. I've also worked with probably dozens now of clients that have launched Teams and had it as a disaster. And when I think of what was the difference between them, it's usually complete understanding, planning, and deployment of the right strategy. So it comes down to your partner. So if you're not something you're overly familiar with launching Teams, I would say you really want to have a good partner like ComTec there helping. And we can walk you through all the risks and hopefully you look at avoiding a lot of the failures that a lot of companies run into, not being overly experienced with deploying Teams. So with that, I'm seeing all these questions come through. This is great. We're gonna attempt to answer a lot of the questions. And again, we really, if there's stuff, I see a lot of these or want to do a deep dive. Anybody who just has additional questions, if you just want to just have a strategy with one of our consultants or just run stuff by us, just fill out that survey at the end of this presentation. Kendall will send it to you. We will follow up within the next day and we'll schedule something one-on-one. We can do whatever you want, deep dive into technology or just really discuss what you're using today. So free consulting for you. So we appreciate everybody showing up. I am going to turn this over to Kendall for some Q&A.
Thank you, Mike. There are, as Mike mentioned, a few hundred people attending this webinar, and we did get a lot of questions. So since we are short on time, we will follow up with anyone who we don't get to answer their question who are live here on this event. So I will jump right into the first question. We have limited staff and rely on outsourcing. How do you do your rollouts? Does your company handle everything?
I mean, everything can be a lot to different people. So what we typically do is a senior consultant will establish a relationship, find out what you're using. But yes, we have project managers that will coordinate everything. We do all the carrier, the cutover of all your services. We do all the programming. We do all the deployment. We do all the training, and we do all the ongoing support. So from an end to end, if you were an organization that were short staffed, you could fully rely on us to take it end to end, and that is common.
Great, thank you. The next question. Our organization uses a call center. Does Teams Voice integrate into it? And what are my options and things to be concerned with?
I think in the earlier part of my presentation, I explained that Teams has two sides, right? You have your basic side and you have your advanced. So Teams Basic, if somebody's to go online, order Teams, voice enable it, you'd have probably a disappointed experience if you were comparing it to all the features that you might have in a phone system, like call center. iConnect Advanced, which sits alongside of Teams, it gives you an advanced features and functionality. You get call center fully integrated, so people from call center can call people inside of the Teams environment. You're getting interoperability, chatting, messaging, reporting. So yes, in the advanced world, you can be an office that embraces Microsoft Teams and use a product for advanced call handling and call reporting and call center.
Perfect. The next question is, we're an MSP looking for a Teams partner. Do you have a partner program?
Sure. So our company is actually built on the partnerships. We are not a direct sales organization. We actually do all of our sales development or opportunity development through MSPs around the country. So we typically will work with them and their clients. Yes, we have an agent program, and then they can either be part of the deployment, help with training and infrastructure, or they can sit silently and just help consult alongside their client. But ultimately, yeah, we have an agent program, and that'd be something. Just follow up with Kendall when we're done, and she can email you a copy of the agent program. It just gives you an idea of just how the register opportunities and how we roll in our organization. Kendall froze up here. So I'm looking at another question here. So can I use Teams to replace any phone system if I already have hardware? I think what you're trying to say is you probably are looking down at an existing phone system and you have purchased hardware already, because you mentioned the word Yay-Link. So yes, traditional phones, if you own the hardware, are integrated. We can integrate them in with Teams. So when people migrate to a Teams environment, you have two choices. You're going to either A, use the desktop version, and you're traditionally using a headset, kind of like what I'm using today. You can see this in the video, or go back to a more traditional role where you can actually just make and receive calls from a traditional handset and just use the Teams interface on your desktop when need be.
Okay, sorry about that. I hope I'm back in business. We're a multinational company. Can you work across many different countries?
We can, and Teams supports a variety of different languages, so it's really how in depth you want to go with auto attendance and language. But ultimately, it's IP enabled, so essentially, whether you plugged in across state or across countries, any device, as long as they're on your existing instance, would work, especially for 3-digit dialing. But if you're talking about multinational, sure, we can port multinational DIDs into your Teams environment, and we have a lot of global clients that use Teams internationally, US, China, India, all with different languages, all different inbound routing.
The next question is, can you deploy the Microsoft 365 suite end to end?
Well, that's kind of loaded, but I would say when somebody asks me that, I would think you're probably using some of the Microsoft tools. You're looking to launch O365, and if doing so, you're looking for your MSP. So you're looking really for a Microsoft partner, which we have plenty we work with. So they would traditionally work with you on a rollout, a strategy, because that's your heavy lifting of moving all your data over. And then we are teamed up with them to help you with your voice experience.
The next question, you mentioned you have other options and solutions other than Teams. Can you elaborate?
Yep. So like I said in the beginning of the presentation, if you were on there, it's like we are not a product company. So we are a solutions provider. So we can represent best in best breed. So we have a lot of clients that were using Cisco Call Manager. They're very committed and they wanted to migrate to the cloud. Cisco bought WebEx and it became a good fit. So we have an entire BroadSoft WebEx platform for companies that want to use, aren't committed to Cisco or I'm sorry, aren't committed to Microsoft, or maybe they had a Cisco legacy environment that they wanted to maintain. So we support a lot of global organizations in the WebEx Cisco platform. We have a product that's the iConnect ZX. So that's an industry juggernaut just in that SMB space, from, I would say, from that 100 to 500 user space. So it has all the collaboration tools, chat, SMSing, but it's outside of Teams. So they've built with our teams a fully integrated collaboration tool, but outside of the Microsoft world. So if somebody says, well, I'm not committed to Teams, or I don't want to use Teams, or I want to have all the advanced features inside of one interface, that would be a product we would probably show.
Okay. And then, do I need a solutions partner or just launch through Microsoft?
You're welcome. You can always call Microsoft. I mean, you don't sit around waiting for the call back. But I would say a solutions provider, their whole job is earning the business of the clients and the respect. We exist for a reason. It fast tracks hurdles. You're going to help with deployment. If you have a staff and you're saying, I know inside and out how to deploy it, I know how to do porting, I know how to do programming, I'm overstaffed, we want to do all of the training, I would say you probably don't need one. But most organizations are very busy in their day-to-day work, that a deployment and maintenance of a brand new technology that's ever changing is not something they would do. So I would really strongly advise finding a solutions provider to help.
Great. Some of the other questions that did come in, they are rather technical, and I would like to pass these off to some of our other experts so we can have a one-on-one with anybody that we haven't gotten to yet. But for the sake of time, we wanted to keep it around about a half hour. So I wanted to thank everybody for attending the webinar. I hope that you thought it was very helpful. Again, you can schedule a one-on-one with us, and we will be sending out a survey as well as a link that you can fill out a form for the webinar, and let us know how we did. Please send in feedback. We want to make every webinar better and better each time for all of you. Again, thank you very much, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Kendall. Bye, everyone.